I'm Karen Eckmeier. Welcome to part 2 of the Quilted Waves vest. In part 1, we cut apart a sweatshirt and we selected our fabrics and we cut them into 4-inch by selvage width strips. And so today we're ready to make our layered waves fabric using the sweatshirt as our base. That is our pattern piece. So you're going to have your 2 front pieces are already cut, and our back piece is cut, and our fabric for the back is cut about a 1/2 inch wider. And I know you can't tell from here, but I can tell by feeling. This is the smooth side. That's going to be the inside of your sweatshirt. And this fuzzy part, that goes against the wrong side of your fabric. So these are the 3 pieces we need to make the vest. Only if we're making a jacket do we need the sleeves, so we're going to just set the sleeves apart for now. You might need it maybe to add length or something for later, so just set those aside. And now we'll get started to make the layered waves fabric for our vest. These are our 6 fabrics. So usually I have a nice multicolor one, and then I've just used that as my color palette to select the other 5 fabrics. I decided that I wanted my blue fabric to be my lapel, so the part of my V of my vest. And so the first step I'm going to do, I've actually marked this. I'm going to take that long piece and I'm going to orient it right along that diagonal edge there. And you can tell maybe you can tell I'm going to mark it with chalk so I know where that corner is there, and I'm feeling with my fingers that I'm about a 1/2 inch past there, and I'm going to mark that part too. So there's my long piece. So I went ahead and decided which kind of curve I wanted. I used my cool curvy ruler here. You can just cut any curve you want, that's fine, or use a piece of string to mark it. And so once you've decided on that, move your pattern piece aside because you don't want to cut your sweatshirt. And then I'm going to just cut that curve. Okay, I know that's what I want. So I'm going to zoom right along there, like so. Now, my next step is to press that edge toward the back. This is the right side of my fabric. I can tell because I have it marked with the chalk. I want to iron or press toward the back side of the fabric about a 1/4 inch seam, which I'm going to do. I've got steam in my iron here. You can use a little starch too, that helps. So just a gentle flowing line here. Some of the convex curves here might look a little ripply on the back, but as long as it looks smooth on the front, that's what we're looking for. So we have the edge turned under, and it looks nice on the front. Now we'll go back to continue the layering process. So here we have our beautiful curve that's pressed over. If I want that same curve for the other side, I would turn it over before I pressed it actually, and I can put that on the other side to use that as my guide to match so that I would have both of my lapels the same curve. You don't have to have the same curve, just if you want to. At this point, I'm going to this is my right front piece. I'm going to set it aside because we're just going to work on one at a time. I know it seems silly to have it marked left and right, but it's easy to get confused. So I'm working on the left. I'm going to put this piece back on, matching my marks here and there. And I decided the next strip I wanted was this one. And I'm going to put it like so and pull that one out. I just want to lay it down. Alrighty. Now, maybe you can see this or not. I want my strips to kind of go at an angle here, and you can maybe see with my chalk that I want to make sure that's the direction I go eventually. It's got to be gradual. So I'm just going to move this a bit, like so. Alright, and I'll mark it with the chalk. I want to know where That's where that ends. I can feel it. I can feel that there. So I'll mark, that's where the armpit is. That's where the shoulder is. Here's that. And instead of taking that off of the sweatshirt right now, and I can't really pin it since it's so soft underneath there, because I'd pin it right to the sweatshirt, and I don't want to do that. I want to pin it right to this other fabric. And I'm going to pin it parallel because I want to cut another curve, and if I stick my pins out, they'll get in the way of cutting a curve. And that will make sense in a second when I show you. So I'm just using a small cutting mat. You could use maybe a plastic ruler, anything that's a hard surface. Okay, so now I'm going to take it off of my pattern piece, and I'm going to cut a gentle curve. What kind of curve? Well, I don't need to reinvent it. I want to basically follow that, but it gradually get a little bit wider. There's not a real science to this. We're just going to cut. It's freeform curves, and I know that's my armhole there. I want to kind of go out toward that section. Now we're ready to top stitch. We're ready to top stitch. We're going to top stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge to create that wonderful little pleat on our fabric. I'm using the inside edge of this presser foot toe lined up with the outside edge of my pressed curve. I decided I'm going to top stitch everything with a green thread. You can change the thread to match your fabric or just choose a multicolor. So let's just go down here. We're using a regular stitch length, 2.5 on my Bernina. As long as it's pinned, it's not hard to sew curves. Just want to make sure it's flat. We don't want to have any waves where they don't belong. Almost to the end. Now we're ready to continue the layering process. All right, so we did our top stitching. Before we do our next step, we're going to turn that over, and I want to just trim this away. I want to trim it away. Let's see, I like to cut. I like to cut this way. I'm going to cut 1/4 inch from that last line of top stitching and do it carefully because I most likely will want to reuse this strip back here. That's why it is a layering process. We don't want to waste that nice piece of fabric. Definitely could be used later. Now before I put this on my next fabric, what do I have to do? I need to press again. So I'm going to go ahead and press that. My curve is now pressed toward the back, and I'm ready for my next fabric. I thought the green might be nice for the next fabric. This just happens to be a shorter piece. Yours is probably still going to be long. And again, I'm going to place it there. I've already positioned my pieces so that I'm on my pattern piece the way I want to be, aligned, in other words. And let's see how much I can get out of this here. And then I'm going to mark with my chalk where that armhole is and where this is. Now for this one, instead I could just do the whole vest front in curves. But wouldn't it be nice to add some of these little triangles? So I thought I'd show you that next step. In order to do that, I need to top stitch this and cut a curve. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I now have this curve top stitched, and I went ahead and trimmed the back. So the next step, before I create those triangles, I'm going to cut another curve, move our pattern piece away. We don't want to cut into that. And I'm going to cut a curve. What kind of curve? I don't know until I start. Maybe something that basically follows that. And again, I'm aiming out toward that corner. So now I have a curve here, and that determines the size of my triangles. I'll just show you what the triangles look like again. Okay, that was determined by what the size or the shape of my curve. Now, I do my curves freeform, but I'm going to draw it out for you so you can see what I'm up to. The point is going to come to here. The dip, we don't want to get any closer than 1/2 inch because we'll be cutting into our nice little pleat there. So I'm going to stop that part of the triangle there. And notice that my peak, so to speak, these are mountains if we're doing an accidental landscape, are 90 degrees or greater because that makes it easier to turn the edge under. Okay, so I have them drawn out, and I'm going to cut them with scissors because you can't do it with a rotary cutter, and be precise. So we'll cut that. And now we are almost ready to iron that over, but in order to be able to press that toward the back, I need to clip in the dip, meaning that lower dip there, about 1/4 inch. And that's another reason we didn't want to get too close to our previous top stitch curve. So I'm just going to clip a little bit there. Pressing the triangles is not quite as a flowing experience as the curves, but it's worth the effort. So we're going to go like this, and when we get to that clip, we're going to kind of encourage it to, it's pretty close to the raw edge there, but then we get to the peak and we overlap. So the clip part is where we turn the piece over again, and I'll hold this up so you can see it. My hand tends to get in the way. There we go. Now we have our triangles. So our points are nicely pressed here. We're ready for our next fabric, which I thought the pink would be nice, as you saw that before. I'm kind of following my lines here with my strips. I'm going to just position that like so. Pull that back up. And that would mark, I just always want to know where the end of my pattern piece is. And then I would go ahead and pin this to the pink fabric and top stitch it. I'm not going to, you don't have to watch me top stitch, but here's a look at what the top stitching looks like. And on the back, you do want to trim away along the zigzag. And then we're going to continue the steps that we have done before. We're going to cut a curve, we're going to press it under, we're going to top stitch, cut away, until we've made a fabric that fits the front of our vest, and then we'll do the same for the other side. So I've gone ahead with some different fabrics, and I have my Layered Waves fabrics for a left and right side of a vest, and that is going to go on my pattern piece. This is the fuzzy side, that's the right side, and like so. I'll do that to both my pieces, and I want it oriented so that I have at least 1/2 inch all around there, and you can trim it. All right, you would do that to both of your pieces. Then you're ready to quilt. And the quilting, you want it to be very, very, very simple. Here it is on something of totally different colors. Here we go. And the quilting, if you can see that, It's just a couple lines. I've learned from experience that if you over quilt it, it becomes too flat and it's not comfortable. I can tell that this is a vest or the front pattern piece for a jacket because when I do a jacket, I make sure I have registration marks on the armholes so that when I put it back together, it fits. And speaking of armholes, this would be the sleeve for that particular jacket. Again, the sweatshirt is the pattern piece. I'm going to turn it over to show you the quilting. Very simple. I just follow the leaves in the front and a couple lines, and again there are my registration marks to put the sweatshirt back together again. Once you have quilted your left and front panels and your back, you're ready to sew your vest together. The first seams will be your shoulder seams, so your right sides together of the panel and your back. And you're going to sew with a 3/8 seam, and then you are going to trim it to 1/4 inch, and then either zigzag it, or if you have a serger, serge the seams. And then before you are ready to sew the side seams, you're going to cut 2.5 inch strips. These are going to be your hidden bindings, all right? And you're first going to put a hidden binding on your arm sleeves. And if I didn't mention, this should be cut on a bias because this is a pretty extreme curve here. So we're going to put one hidden binding on each arm sleeve. And then we're going to try the vest on. Try it on inside out and pin it. See how it fits, okay? You want to make sure that your shoulders are the right size. I like mine a little narrower. Some people like them out a little further, so you want to do that also actually before you put your arm sleeve binding on. And then just if it needs to be tapered at all, that's when you're going to pin it. And then when you like how that looks, you're going to sew it. And again, you're going to sew a 3/8 inch seam and then trim it to 1/4 inch and then zigzag or serge. So I just did a zigzag. Then we're going to cut a binding that goes from the bottom up around your neck and down here. And then last but not least, the one that goes across the bottom of your piece to finish off your Wearable Waves vest. I have detailed instructions in my book Wearable Waves, and I'm going to give you a little sneak preview of some of the jackets in the book. And that is the book, Wearable Waves.